Welcome to the Wrestling Philosophy Show, where we discuss unique perspectives and beliefs on the sport of wrestling. Give us a follow or subscribe on various social media platforms, including YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Enjoy the show.
In this conversation, we talk with Larry Marchionda of Leader Headgear. I really enjoyed the sincere conversation with Larry, with him sharing the story behind his injuries that ultimately led to the creation of the Leader Headgear. He shares his team's work and how they ultimately came up with the name Leader Headgear and the developments they're making still today. So here we are today with Larry Marchionda, Leader Headgear. How you doing today, Larry?
I'm doing very well. Thanks, Jared.
Yeah, we just had some great conversation pre-recording, and looking forward to this conversation. A lot of good stories from what I've heard so far. Could you give our listeners a little background on your wrestling and how you got involved in the sport?
Well, it's kind of strange. I really never wanted to wrestle, and I was in high school in Penn Yan, New York, Penn Yan Academy, and one of these young wrestlers kept saying, "Hey, come and wrestle, come and wrestle." And I said, "No, I don't want to wrestle. I just didn't like it. I didn't like violence. I shouldn't say I didn't like that." But I finally did go, and I did wrestle, and actually it was in the middle of my sophomore year, so I didn't have a lot of wrestling.
Wow.
And my first practice was a quadrangular meet, no practice at all. And God had did me something that I didn't realize that I had. It was just kind of a gift, and I had beaten everyone, and that's when I got my first nickname. Coach David Courier said, "Man, you look like a spider out there." So my nickname all through high school, and I never really got rid of that nickname, and that was Spider.
Okay.
So I wrestled in high school for 3 years, and went undefeated and pinned everybody my senior year.
Wow.
But then, after I graduated, there was nothing. I grew up on a farm in upstate New York in Penn Yan, and my parents had vineyard with eight of us there, a family of 8, and we were just making it go. Nobody ever thought about going to college. My mom, she never, graduated from high school. So, and it was pretty normal back in the day that a lot of the parents had to work. So basically, I was got off the school bus and changed our clothes, and we went to the vineyard and worked until it was dark, and went in and got ready for school the next day. That's pretty much the life that we had. But one day, I think a defining moment was I decided that I was going to join the Marine Corps.
Okay.
And so I went to Syracuse, New York on a bus, took my test. And I always had that desire to want to wrestle more. But during the physical, they called me in at the end and said, your jaw has been broken a few times and it's not healed right. So come back in 6 weeks. And during that time, I was working in the vineyard row with my brother Dick. And my father had this philosophy that I've given you so many rows to do, and you don't quit until those vineyard rows are done. And also remember that the harder you work, the faster you get done. And so we tested that a few times, and we found out that he really meant it. You just get out there and get going. And we carried that over into our wrestling too. We realized that the harder you work in wrestling, the faster you can get off the mat. And that's probably some of that. It's probably why my senior year I pinned everybody, because I didn't really want to go the whole time. So it kind of, the philosophy carried over, and it does today too. But what happened was when I was working in that vineyard row with my brother Dick, and my brother Dick was an excellent wrestler. He only lost one time in high school. and he wrestled all 4 years. And I'm working in the vineyard row, and this is the defining moment in my life, and that God has a big hand in it. I'm working in the vineyard row, and I look down at the end of the row, and I said, Dick, what did you do in school today? He goes, what? What did you do in school today, Dick? Not that I do anything. So that's the principal down there, and our father doesn't look very happy.
Uh-oh.
And so we get a little closer, and I said, Dick, you did get in trouble, because I was out of school already.
Okay.
And he says, no, that you must have did something wrong. It wasn't me, I know. And I said, well, that's the counselor. These all guys had business reasons. My father made him stay there for an hour. And we get a little closer, and I said, Dick, I don't know who the other guy is, but that's the principal and the guidance counselor, and our father was really mad. And he says, head me you. And we get down to the last vine, and my father goes, Renzo, get over here. And I was, oh my God, that's me. And he said, these guys want to know if you want to go to college and wrestle.
Oh, wow.
And I went, yes. And so I was promised a scholarship to Winona State University, what was Winona State College back then. It was one of the tougher university programs in the country. Back in those days, now we're talking about the late 50s and early 60s, there was just NAIA and NCAA. There was no divisions. That's all there was. And so I went to Winona State University, and this is one of the biggest setbacks in my life.
Okay.
I was promised a scholarship. I had my life savings in my pocket, $363. And I went up to get my classes, and they told me that's going to be $360. And I said, no, I'm on scholarship. And they said, we don't give scholarships here. So, sometimes I probably should have investigated a little bit more. And so we don't give scholarships here. And they said, let's talk to coach. Coach says, oh, yeah. If Larry can make the team, we'll take care of his tuition.
Oh, geez.
And I guess you could do that back in that day, right?
Okay.
So
You thought you were set. You thought you were good, right?
Yeah. So anyway, he put me up in a little room down on Mississippi River on the second floor. And with the little money I had left, I bought a loaf of bread and a couple packages of hot dogs, and I put them in my duffel bag, and I tied a rope around it, and I put it out the window to keep it cool. And then at night, when I get done with practice, I come in and put them on the radiator, get them warmed up again and thawed out. Well, I didn't last the whole year. Just before Thanksgiving, I had to drop out. I went back to New York, got a job, and I was just going to work at this place for the rest of my life. And during the summertime, I got a call from Bob Gunner. God bless him. And he said, Larry, come back to college. And so the next fall, I came back to college, and I had a nice job in Winona, and I worked my way through the university. And, it was those are turning points in my life that people believed in me and didn't let me go. I think that's one thing that I'm very, very thankful for.
Yeah, it's we all have those people, and it's it's funny. You thought it was your brother getting in trouble, so I'm guessing he was a mischievous one of the bunch. If he kind of assumed he was in trouble, huh?
My younger brother was never. My younger brother.
Okay.
No. You're looking at the guy who was always in trouble.
Okay. You just knew it wasn't you because you're out of school.
But I was out of school, yeah.
Well, maybe that's why they pushed you into wrestling, right? Maybe, right?
Yes, and I'm out of school for a whole year, without wrestling. And, I never thought that I would get back into it. But, that to me, that was a godsend to have them come all the way over to say, hey, let's go to college. Of course, the coach kind of deceived me a little bit, as far as going to get a scholarship right off the bat, and I didn't have to worry about anything. My housing, my food, my meals will all be taken care of,
Mm-hmm.
and nothing was.
Oh man, that's too bad.
Yeah. So it was a character builder,
Mm-hmm.
but also, for all of us that wrestle, we're like a big fraternity. There's always somebody out there that cares for you, and especially if you're a good person and you work hard.
Totally agree. Couldn't agree more. You talked a little bit, back then it was only NAI and NCAA. And we talked off air how kind of the headgear, before we get into your story with your headgear, kind of how, it went from no headgear to optional to, this is all new to me. I'd like to hear more about that.
Yes, it's a very unique life that I have because of my age. Young people now that during this era don't realize that there was a period of time when there was no headgear at all. And that was during my high school years. There was no headgear. Uh, and that's in the 50s and early 60s. I don't know exactly what year Cliff Keen built the very first headgear, God bless him. But I remember, at university, I would, both my ears, I don't know if you can see them.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They're both, pretty smashed. And back then too, there was no athletic trainers, and there was no option if you got injured that you could take some time off. We had to wrestle and practice every day. And so I would go to the doctor and have them drained during the morning, and then have my head wrapped and go to practice the next day with no headgear. And that was a pretty normal thing. I don't think that people could even recognize me on campus if my head wasn't wrapped. You can see me coming from a long ways. Right? But yeah, there was a period when there was no headgear, and then there was a period where the headgear became an optional. You could wear it if you wanted to, and you could wear it if you didn't want to. And then there was a period of time when the headgear became mandatory. But it's not a headgear. We all in wrestling, we all call it a headgear. But the NCAA rulebook and the National Federation of High School rulebook, they do not call it a headgear. It is an ear guard. So when we did create my new headgear, we had to call it an ear guard because that's what it says you must wear in the rule book. We call ours ear guard XP for extra protection.
Gotcha.
So that's the story about the headgear.
Yeah, that learned something new all the time. I didn't realize the transition, through
Yeah,
that.
another thing that transition that happened back then, because there was this NAIA and the NCAA. If you won the NAIA, you got an automatic berth to the NCAA. And there were many, many kids, wrestlers from our conference, from Winona State University, that went from winning the NAIA right into the NCAA and placing there and winning it there. Bucky Mon is a great example, who won the NAIA and then won the NCAA. And another guy was Bob Bilberg from Morehead State, that won the NAIA and went on and won the NCAA. Very unique time that I grew up in.
Mm-hmm. Right. That's pretty neat. That's I didn't know that regarding the NAIA. I knew that for Division 3 and 2, they used to let them compete in the Division 1, but I did not know that about NAIA.
Yeah, that was way before they even had divisions in the NCAA, though.
Okay.
They had no divisions.
So here you are, with the ears and the jaw and everything. What I guess was there a defining moment or an inspiration that kind of led to this initial thought of creating this ear guard?
Yes. Well, quite a few things happened to me before that. Of course, I've had a lot of a lot of wrestling. I mean, I wrestled for years after I graduated from Winona State University. In 1968, I won the U.S. Olympic trials,
Oh,
regional
wow.
trials, U.S. Olympic regional trials here in the Midwest. And then I qualified for the final trials at Ames, Iowa. So many, many years after that, I had wrestled. And of course, when you're doing freestyle and Greco, you don't really wear headgear.
Right.
And Greco people won't ever want me to say this, but during my generation, my era, we wrestled folk style in high school, and in college, and then when we got done with college, we did freestyle, and we did Greco. And Greco was usually the last thing, and we did them all. I mean, we did them all until you couldn't do it anymore. So when you felt that you weren't wrestling very, very well in freestyle, then you moved up to Greco. So when everybody would see me wrestling Greco, say, Larry, you're pretty much done, aren't you? I don't know if they do that anymore, but Greco guys are killing me if they heard me. But we did them all. And but anyway, I did wind up one day, and this is a very interesting story, you know, from all the small impacts that we take during wrestling. There was a day when I was in teaching in school. I was a physical education teacher, and I found myself at home in the afternoon, and I go, oh my, I don't remember this afternoon. So I called my principal because I was afraid that I walked out of school, and I said, Ron, I don't remember this afternoon, and I'm at home. Did I leave school? He goes, what? Did I leave school? And he goes, let me check. I'll call you back. He called me back and he says, no, Larry, you were here. The kid said you did a good job. And that's when I first learned that I had a problem. And then a lot of other things were happening, like I would hear something in my garage, and I would open up the door to look what's going on out there, and I'd leave my car on. So I was having a lot of little issues like that. But anyway, I wound up having brain surgery to correct from having too many small concussions. And what happened is the aqueduct that drains the fluid from my brain had scar tissue closed.
Oh, wow.
So I became hydrocephalic. And a fine wrestler who was a neurosurgeon had his own process. I have a divot right here where he went down through my brain and he lasered a hole in the fourth ventricle. And so my fluid drains out the front now, not the back.
Wow.
But again, another wrestler helping wrestlers.
Mm-hmm.
And the doctor that found it, Dr. Mike Striggins, came in on a Sunday, and he's looking at my CAT scan, and he called me on a Sunday and said, Larry, you got to go to Milwaukee to Freighter in the morning and you can't drive. So, yeah. So, but the thing is, the point I'm trying to make, though, is that it's not the one big hit.
Mm-hmm.
It's the multiple times that your head gets, and then here I'm 56 years old and I having brain surgery from what happened from all the, from the progressive damage over the years. So that's important. And then the headgear issue, Jared, came from an incident that happened when I was at UW-Oshkosh. I was a head coach there for a couple of years after I retired from high school teaching. And we had this young man from Texas, and Joey, he's a state champion in Texas. And that's quite an honor to be a state champion in Texas. And he came all the way up here to Oshkosh, and his very first meet, he's in tears. And I said, what's the matter? And he says, the trainer said I had a concussion in practice last night. I can't wrestle. I said, well, don't worry, Joey. You go through the protocol and we'll be fine. Don't worry about it. He says, no, you don't understand, coach. I says, what don't I understand? I had 2 in high school. This is my 3rd one, and I can never wrestle again. I've been working my whole life for this. And while watching the match with him, sitting next to him, I had like an epiphany. And that was watching the match. I'm going, why are we just protecting ears? It didn't make any sense. We're just protecting the ears. And so then I met with Dale Evans from Evco Plastics, who's a former wrestler, and Rich Andrews, who was an NFL player who had this material, this very unique material. And we formed LDR Headgear.
All right. So it's the 3 names, right? So leader,
Yes.
and then it kind of fit. Yeah.
It's kind of a unique LDR leader headgear, Larry, Dale, and Rich, and that was the progression that we went. And we would never be able to do this without Dale Evans. He is a CEO of a big corporation, Evco Plastics. He understands the industry. He's a former wrestler. He works for wrestlers still, even today, even though he's a CEO of a company with 7 factories in 2 countries. So yeah, Dale Evans has been very instrumental in this whole operation, and we couldn't do it without him.
When was that? When did you kind of launch? When
We
was it?
launched this on 2014 was the idea. 2015 is when we started making some prototypes, but the prototypes were just an idea. So the prototypes were not very good. Then we kept making improvements, and every year we make improvements. And the unique thing about our headgear is all the parents, and you see people wearing LDR headgear, they do give us input, and we do listen. Every change that's been made on this headgear has come from the parents and the wrestlers and the coaches themselves. And we as wrestlers, we're not just manufacturers, we care, and we do listen, and we do make improvements.
That's awesome. You mentioned parents, and you mentioned improvements, and you mentioned, head injuries, and I guess that was kind of always been my questions and my intrigue from my personal history. I don't have any head trauma, even though competed for a long time. But we spoke off air of my experiences. My father, very anyone that knows him, very inspirational and amazing person. But not many people know his first concussion. This is in the 70s. Was him and my mom after school. They weren't dating yet, and I think they were in middle school. She threw a snowball, and he slipped out of the way, slipped on ice and had his first concussion. Well, fast forward a few years later, he, like you mentioned, repetitive, hits and, from football and wrestling, he, had to give up the contact sports, and, that was the 70s. It's come a long way since then. But, he's had some issues since then, and, the long-term effects, we don't know. And obviously you've seen that, been able to get through it, but now you're making an impact, through the equipment you're put in place to be at that moment in that time with that wrestler, to kind of have that inspirational moment to kind of, okay, that's what we can do. And then, did Dale and Rich, kind of just, kind of seems like it came, someone was looking out or whatever it may be to put you 3 in contact, right?
It is amazing, yeah, you have to believe in God, and I do. He has had not an awful, a wonderful impact on my life, and he has kind of led me and surrounded me with people that have been very helpful, and you're one as well, Jared. God, I didn't know you before today. And the thing is that he's been very instrumental in everything. Everything happened to me and everything that we're doing. And there's no doubt in my mind that we're going to make I don't want to use the word impact, but,
Right. Good point.
but we're going to be helping mitigate impact in the
Right.
wrestling community.
Right. No, that's good. That's good for sure. And you, like you said, you were a physical education teacher. So background, you weren't an entrepreneur. So, meeting those two individuals is probably very key in getting this product off the ground. And, obviously, your wrestling days, I'm sure taught you perseverance and, a lot of characters that probably has led over into this entrepreneurial role, right?
Yes, it has. And Dale, sometimes when I was first learning the business, he would scratch his head like saying, Larry, no, we can't do that. Larry, no. So, but I've been learning. But the problem is that when you get to be in your 70s, it's a little bit more difficult to learn and to retain. But I've been pushing hard and doing it. But I guess one thing too, the wrestling community might be interested in. And it's my personality. I remember my very first match at the university. We were up at North Dakota State, and I went out. I had a great match, I thought. And Coach Gunner put his arm around me and he goes, Larry. And I thought he was going to give me, some
An
accolade.
earful. Oh, okay.
Larry, you make so many mistakes out there. But the good news is, before they capitalize on your first mistake, you're already making your second one. And that's been my story of my life. I wrestled that way. I never cared about making a mistake. I just cut it loose. And while I was coaching, I did see a lot of times, and I'm sure a lot of your wrestling community and parents will see this too, that the young wrestlers are afraid to make a mistake, so they don't do anything. And then they wind up countering stuff. And I never even knew what a counter was. I just kept going and going and going. And I think that, once I started to teach some of my wrestlers that don't worry about making a mistake. You've got to go.
Mm-hmm.
You make a mistake, it's no big deal. And the thing is, you can learn very quickly that if you stay a mistake ahead of them, they can't beat you.
That's a good point. That's a great point, right?
Yeah, but anyway, that's important. And that in the industry, I make a lot of mistakes, but I do listen to my business partners, and then also the parents and the coaches and the wrestlers. Actually, this whole concept of a headgear has been from the wrestling community, period. It's not a corporate thing. It's not we're very, very happy with it.
Right, that's awesome. No, yeah, I mean, you have to, like they say, fail fast, right? You don't want to be spending times on something that's not going to work. And if you're putting it out there and getting the feedback, right, it's the best way to do it. And that's pretty cool. So 6 years in, well, I guess I'm curious, what has the design? You mentioned the design changes. What are some of those changes over those 6-7 years?
That's a great question. And for the wrestling community, this is the headgear.
Mm-hmm.
But the wrestling community and all of us that have wrestled know how hard it is to adjust the strapping system on headgears.
So my assistant coach at high school, he keeps a pair of needle nose pliers in his locker just to adjust headgears. And I'm always like, let the kid adjust it. They got to learn hard work. He's like, no, I'll take care of it, And so he's, first couple weeks of practice, he's tightening them up with his needle nose.
And what often happens is that they never fit them properly and they get twisted around, especially with the younger or smaller kids. And we have developed a lacing strapping system here that is easy to adjust just by moving it back and forth this way.
Okay.
This strap here makes the ear cup go forward and back, and all they have to do is center that ear hole on their ear canal. Okay. And once it's locked in place, it doesn't move because of the angles that we have patented in that strapping system. And then we have this strap here that raises and lowers the ear cup so that the ear hole is centered. And once it's so unique that once it's fit properly, a wrestler could really wrestle
Right. How many times do you see
without
wrestlers kind of falling down, they're pushing their headgear up, right?
without even having this on.
Oh, wow. Okay. Before
Okay,
even getting the chin
it
strap.
stays put.
Okay.
But what we also did is we wondered why are wrestlers, and we asked them, why are you not wearing a chin cup? You're just wearing a neck strap.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't like it because the chin cups were always so hard and that the sweat pooled up in there. So we making our own.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. With the holes in them. Yeah.
It's ventilated
Okay.
and it's soft. It's a silicone.
Okay.
So it holds the jaw in place, but also the sweat doesn't pool in there. And so that's what makes it so unique. And then we were having trouble. Thank God we have Dale Evans. We were having trouble with importing the snaps from.
Okay.
They're not made in this country.
Right. Right.
This one is okay.
Okay.
So what we had to do is we had to, because they weren't staying.
Class.
So what we have is Evco Plastics has made our own snap just for this headgear, and so they stay put. So that's the unique thing about it, and it's light. During the COVID time now, it's so easy to clean because it's not multiple pieces. It's
Right.
injectable, single piece. So we're finding that that's been good, and then also we're finding that when a kid puts the face mask on, they're
Right. Because some states are requiring the face mask now, right?
Yeah.
I see that you guys have that capability to adhere to the headgear, right?
Yeah, but they don't even really need to do that. They can put the face mask on, and then when they put this on, the headgear on, the chin cup
Holds in place, right?
keeps in place. It doesn't go up and down like how it does for us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we've been finding great success with the COVID and our headgear because of the face mask being held there, and then also with the softer ventilated chin cup.
Mm-hmm. Well, probably that plastic piece too. The clasp, right? I've have, like I said, I coach, and sometimes they start rusting out from all the moisture because it's a metal clasp, right?
Yes, yeah, they do. But all the headgears are just good out there. They are. I mean, everyone should wear a headgear, whether it's LDR or Cliff Keen or I don't know what they call Matt Man. I guess the other one is.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ones out
There's
there.
a lot of them out there, but they should wear one in practice and in the meet. And that's another issue that I think is important to address. And that is a lot of coaches don't require kids to wear a headgear in practice. And then the first time they wear it's in the meet. And it's uncomfortable for them in the meet because they only haven't put it on all week. Right. And to me, that's a scary issue. First of all, it's not fair to the kid. He should be getting used to that helmet or the headgear while he's in practice so that he's comfortable in it all the time. And then also they're really leaving themselves open to liability because in the rule book it says they must. And if something happened, then they didn't. They're not following the rule book. So yeah, so it's a very, very important issue. I just think that I would love to see more, all of our coaches requiring at the high school, middle school, high school, and even the youth wrestling, wearing a headgear all the time. And I don't care if it's ours or whose, I should be wearing.
Right. 100% agree. From my coaching chair, my coaching position, we make our kids wear the headgear. Got to have your headgear on in practice. I know growing up, I always wore mine. My ears were just so sensitive that if I bumped them, I could have a little bit of cauliflower ear even from wearing a headgear. But my brothers, on the other hand, they were that type. I don't need it, and their ears would never, cauliflower up. But like you're saying, with your headgear, that head trauma, it can be prevented. Even just all it takes is one time. I mean, we are pretty lucky in wrestling. Coach pointed this out years ago to me. We are one of the only sports, we have potentially dangerous, right? A ref can stop a match before it gets too dangerous, right? Football, it may be too late. The ref's not getting in there and stopping it. So that's one thing I try to preach to new parents is like, look, there's wrestling can be safe, right? And obviously, you're doing your part.
Yeah, I think that that's one thing that I really would like it for us to emphasize too, and that is wrestling is a very, very, very safe sport.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I wrestled for over 30 years competitively with, high level people.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's where my issues come from. But in this day and age, especially at the high school level where you have athletic trainers all the time, and if a kid gets bumped in the head, then they're going to always err on the side of safety and call it a concussion and make them sit out. And I think and things do happen. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
unintentionally, a person, his head may hit the mat either through his own effort or somebody else's, or there's so many ways that you can have head impact. So why not? I guess that's my question. Why not have head impact protection?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
What
Rather have it and not need it than not have it and be
exactly?
too
And
late.
it's so important, Jared.
Mm-hmm. So I've seen you have some soccer headgear. Is there other products you guys have too?
We started off making soccer headbands and also wrestling uh, headgear, but our focus right now, we still have our soccer headband, which is the prototype, the
Okay.
very first one.
And that's on your website, correct? If anyone's wanting to
It's
see that, right?
Yeah, it's on our website. I didn't have any with me here,
That's all right.
but we do have them.
Mm-hmm.
However, we want to make it better,
Mm-hmm.
but we don't want to spread ourselves too thin.
Completely understand.
And then also, what we're going to go back and readdress that, but we want to get this wrestling headgear done correctly and get that out there. Right now, and also what we've realized and what we have done, and you probably have noticed it because you're coaching, is that we know, and everyone that's wrestled knows that when you have our favorite headgear and you've worn it in middle school, you still want to wear that same one in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when I was at the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh, when I recruited a kid from another state, they still wanted to wear their own high school headgear because there was some magic in it. Okay.
Little superstition.
And so we realized right away with wrestling headgear that we're not going to get high school coaches or wrestlers to change their attitude right away. They're going to still wear the headgear they did. So we have been focusing on the youth program. So you'll see a lot of, like Iowa is really big with LER headgear. Now we got a team down there called the Iowa Hammers, and they're all over the country with their headgear on. And they've been, and also in Michigan and in Ohio too, we have some youth programs that have it. So what's happening now is that we had our first state champion at the high school level in Iowa last year. We had our first state champion in Wisconsin last year with our headgear on. So they're growing up and coming out. And just like good wrestling programs, you start with a good youth program.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And let them blossom.
Right. No, I know a handful of our wrestlers in our youth program here, have them on it. Like I mentioned off air, talking with one of our parents last night, and that's the headgear they have, and they recommend to these new parents too. So
Oh, that's nice. Thank you.
yeah, it's so, and they come in all colors, right? All assortment of colors. So if teams looking for a certain color, or
we have them in team colors, and we start out with the most popular team colors, like red, blue, gold, and green, and black. And then we also have a lot of options for them where they can go to our website and have black headgear with red straps, or they can buy colored straps. Strapping systems are removable, and they can replace them with different colors.
Cool. Cool.
Yeah.
So, and then you have a program with the Head Health Wrestling program do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yes, I really would love to. Thank you, Jared.
Mm.
We have a program where we felt that we could help wrestling clubs and help wrestlers with a fundraiser. And what we call it is a head health and wrestling fundraiser for clubs. And what we ask is the clubs, contact us, and we'll have information on our website as well, where if they purchase a certain amount, we give them at a very discounted price. Actually, they make about $10 on every headgear.
Oh, wow.
So what they can do is buy them from us at a discounted price, and then they can sell them to their parents and their clubs at the list price, but they also can sell them at their events. And that's been very popular out in Iowa and Minnesota, where the clubs are taking them and they're having them available for all the participants in their youth tournaments that come to their events. And that way we are protecting the young wrestlers' head health, along with creating a fundraiser for the local club.
Wow. That's really cool. A great idea. Like you said, getting these kids at the youth level involved, and those repetitions of not being impacted on the head is, really key. So anything new coming up with, you said you still want to get the headgear right. I guess what are some of the things, can you talk about that or,
Well, I think with the current version that we have, actually the new version is the pink for the girls.
Mm-hmm. So those that are listening to the audio version, you can see this on the YouTube version.
Yes.
A lot of different options with colors and styles, but go on, Larry.
But right now we feel we've got almost everything perfect. We aren't having any issues with it anymore. We were having some problems with the snap, but we eliminated all the old snaps and we're using our own and making our own mold. But we haven't had any issues at all. As a matter of fact, our best salespeople are the people wearing them.
Mm-hmm. That's how you know you have a good product, right?
Exactly. We were spending a lot of advertising the first year, but we feel that the advertising wasn't as productive as parents, kids, and coaches.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, our business. Well, this is very interesting, the wrestling community too, because they can relate to it. Is that we were doing really well last October, November, December. We weren't allowing our fulfillment people to go home at night until all the orders go out the same day, and that's one of the issues. One of the things that we do now is we make sure that everything ordered today goes out today. Well, last year it was late at night before anybody could go home because there were
so many.
Then all of a sudden in March,
right,
COVID,
yeah,
COVID hit, and we had some pretty quiet times. March, April, May, June, and now July. Now every month sales are tripling.
Oh, good.
This month, yeah. Last month was huge, and this month already has exceeded last month in the first week or first 4 days. So yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, we just hope everyone stays safe out there, not only from the COVID pandemic, but also with their head health. Impacts do happen, and here's a point that I don't think I've heard anyone say this or mention this, but the NFL, for example, we talk about these guys getting concussed and also having CTE and all the problems that they had. But they don't realize this is just something from Larry's mind.
Right. Okay. Yep.
When I put this together, I go, wait a minute. These great football players, that's not the first time they got hit. Those guys played Pop Warner football.
Mm-hmm.
Then from there, they went on and they played middle school football. And from there, they went on and played high school football. And from there, they went to the university and played football. Wow. It just didn't happen in the NFL, and they get the big rap. I think it happened a long time ago. Just the repetitive hits, and I, as you witness, because I've experienced it myself,
Mhm.
just those repetitive hits over years and years and years, they do add up. They just do. And, that's why I think head health is important in all sports, period. Soccer, football, wrestling, anything where you have contact.
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. Um, one other, I guess we didn't touch on with the product itself. You mentioned the other headgears out there. You do offer a product that you can add on, right, to kind of mimic your style. I mean, it's not the exact same, but it does have that padding. So if you have that wrestler that has their lucky headgear, right, they can still have your pad, right?
Yes. Yes, we do have, I don't have any right here,
Oh, that's
but
all right. That's all right.
we do have, what we did is recreated a pad that fits on the back of the head too. And I don't know, maybe many wrestlers aren't aware of this, but in the UFC, the only place you can't hit somebody is right here
In the back, right?
because it'll knock them out.
Mhm.
And so we created a pad that attaches here and attaches up here. But we also felt, you know what, when we did the engineering of that particular pad, we made it so that it's universal. The universal pad will fit on the front of a Cliff Keen or any force strap headgear, and it'll also fit on the back of it. So we designed it so that it gives us more protection for those who are wearing our headgear. But also, if you don't want to buy a headgear, we have that universal impact pad that you can, it just attaches very simply and easily on all fat four strap headgears that aren't ours. So again, we want everyone to be protected regardless of whether you wear our headgear or not.
That's awesome. So another little fact here. I haven't shared this yet with the listeners, and like I said, this show isn't about me, but the logo you see on my screen there, those four dots, kind of my cousin who designed it, that supposed to replicate the dot, the holes on a headgear. That's what the dots there for. So yeah, not many, and not that people care or are curious, but that's what it is. I think it's obviously for this episode, it kind of seems fitting, right,
I
to
like
share
it.
that story. So
Thank
um
you.
yeah, so obviously leaderheadgear.com is where they can find your products, right? Any place else or anything else you want to share?
Well, you can find the products at that leaderheadgear.com, all spelled out.
Mm-hmm.
And really, we're more concerned. I guess we can wrap it up by saying that every penny that we have made on Leader Headgear has gone back into the Leader Headgear. My 14, 15-hour days here are here just for the love of wrestling and to make this headgear better. And I guess the only thing I would like is for our wrestling community, when you see them out there, ask other parents how they like it. And also, please send recommendations to us. Leader Headgear has been made by wrestlers for wrestlers with input from the wrestling community, period. This is your headgear.
That's awesome. That's I shared, involved in the OAC here in Ohio, and 20 something years ago, it's a completely different look, and that's what I tell people. It's not my ideas or
Yeah,
Jude's or other people. It's the feedback of the community, and we're receptive to that, and that's why the events have gotten better and the programs and processes have gotten better. And I didn't mention this, but way back when youth tournaments weren't requiring headgear, we were like, look, these kids have to be wearing them, A, for safety, and B, they have to get used to it. They're gonna have to wear them someday. They have to be comfortable wrestling with the headgear. So yeah.
Jared, one other thing too is that when we developed this,
Mhm.
my very first prototype, We sent it down to the National High School Federation.
Okay.
And we asked them for approval. They sent it back and it said, Larry, you got to do this, this, and this. So we made the prototype, sent it back. They sent it back. Larry, I mean, it got down to where you have to have a landing space outside the Velcro. So there has to be a space at the edge of the strap and the Velcro because it can be safe. So, I mean, it got very, very particular and
Technical,
and
right.
sent it back. And then they called me and said, Larry, the National Federation of High School Rules Committee has approved your headgear.
Wow. I bet that was an awesome feeling that day.
And I went, yeah. But I said, well, wait a minute now. It's got to go before the medical advisory board.
Oh, wow.
That's just what I said.
It's like, oh, it kind of deflated, right?
And so it went before the medical advisory board and they approved it. And and here's what the comment was. They felt that not only the person wearing this headgear is being protected, but he's also protecting his opponent as well.
Wow, yeah, good point.
So that was approved by the National Federation. And again, it is a good point because, you are protecting yourself, but you're protecting your opponent too from a head hit.
Right. I never thought about that. My youngest brother, I don't know how many times he's had his, wrestling back in the day. It might not have been from head, but his tooth, but from, I don't know if it was elbows or what, but multiple times. But I never thought of that angle, protecting another, whoever you're wrestling. That's a very good point.
And the first 3 years, we were sending out questionnaires to parents, just 3 questions to customers. And the questions were, did your son or daughter have a concussion before wearing a headgear? Did your son and daughter have a concussion after wearing a headgear? And would you recommend it? And we found that the first 3 years that no one had a concussion, even though they had one before, had a reoccurrence, and that no one had a concussion wearing a headgear. And I'm going, no, that can't be right. I wrestled. That just can't be right.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to some tournaments and watched these kids wrestling and went to some practices watching these little kids wrestling. And I can tell you without any reservation, they're wrestling in better position. When they're attacking, their heads are up. They're not dropping their head on a shot. They're just wrestling in a better position because they feel more comfortable with head impact protection.
Wow, yeah.
And that is a big thing because not only is it helping protect them, but also they're wrestling in a better position, which is going to make them more protected as well.
Right. Probably even going down to the neck injuries too, if they're diving in with the top of the head too. I mean, that kind of trickles down, better position for wrestling, learning wise, but also, other injuries because now they're keeping their head up, right?
And I think that even football coaches, when they have the little young ones tackling and stuff, the first thing they do is they drop their head. Mm-hmm. I mean, when you're getting close to someone, you don't want to take it,
face, right?
Mm-hmm. On the face. Mm-hmm. And so I think that that's one big thing that I learned is that young kids wrestling with leader headgear are wrestling in better position. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your time. Thank you for, your perseverance. I'm sure I can't imagine the hours behind, not only getting that off the ground, but the continuous, work to make it better and providing, it's a culture change, right? I'm sure those first few years seemed long, right? Trying to, the usual headgear and then, okay, now you're seeing it. Like you said, I see it, every tournament we're at, we see them. So it's pretty neat to see.
Right. It was a year of perseverance. I remember when we got into 3 states, we had headgear sold in 3 states, and then all of a sudden, after the second year, we were in every state in the union. And then I was, but they were just ordering ones, and then all of a sudden, we have LDR Europe now.
Oh, awesome!
So, so we're selling in Europe, and we have them in Israel. We also sell in Canada. And Hawaii has been a big state for us right now too. So
Wow.
things are really going well. But again, it's one of those things where it's a labor of love. It's not a labor of
Mhm.
profit or income for us.
Right.
But again, I can't wrestle anymore, but I can contribute to the sport this way.
Mhm.
And again, wrestling has done so much for me, like it has done for so many others. And if I can contribute back as I fade out, this is the way I want to do it.
Well, thanks for your sharing your story and thanks for giving back to the community. We appreciate it.
Thank
So,
you.
and then you mentioned they ship same day, or I mean, so this is a perfect time for the holiday gift, right?
Yeah, we ship same day. Usually a normal just shipping is 2 to 3 days
Okay.
in the country. We do have options for to expedite the shipment, but usually the cheapest shipping is going to get it there in 2 or 3 days, and we do ship same day. Thanks, Jared.
Thank you. We'll talk off air here, but thanks for the conversation.
Thank you.